On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we continue our summer of 2004 rewatch as we take a look on today's episode at Game 2 in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals against the New York Islanders. We talk about the outcome as well as some of the factors in this game that led to the result, as well as some comparisons between the 2004 Lightning in this game and some things that we have seen from the modern day Bolts. All that coming up and more on Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Adam Danker. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Locked On Lightning. On today's episode, we're continuing our Summer of 2004 segment where we take a look back on the playoff run, which ultimately led to the Lightning winning their first Stanley Cup title. And on today's episode, we're taking a look at Game 2 of the Eastern Conference quarterfinal series against the New York Islanders. The Lightning come into this game up 1-0. We talk about this game. We recap it. We take a look at some things that possibly remind us of today's Lightning. We talk about all that good stuff. But first, I just want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Still searching for a great candidate for your company? Don't search. Just match with Indeed. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So the Lightning are coming into Game 2 of the Eastern Conference quarterfinal, up 1-0 in a game where a lot of people didn't think the Lightning played particularly well. They won that one in pretty convincing fashion, and blanking the Islanders. Not blanking the Islanders, sorry, but it looked like for a minute that Hobby Bullen was going to have the shutout in that one, but a late goal kind of scratched that off. But what we saw in that second period in Game 1, where the Lightning just looked kind of pretty much outmatched, where I didn't bring it up in the last episode, but like I did say in the last episode, though, I am watching a lot of these games for the first time. I was 12 when they 12 when they happened. So I wasn't, I was still in school then, so I wasn't able to stay up late. But so that's why they make this, that's why this is all that more enjoyable for me. And I'm sure some other fans that maybe were too young or not even alive when this happened. And in Game 2 and we kind of saw more of what kind of some of the issues that the Lightning had in that second period in Game 1, pretty much from the get-go. And that's why we'll talk about more about that in the second half of this show, because really it's issues that we see time and time again from the Lightning the last couple of seasons. But starting off, really, I thought that the Lightning were going to come jumping out of the gate pretty quickly in this one. I thought they were going to get a couple of quick ones to start things off. Hobby Bullen, for the most part, looked pretty solid in net. He wasn't getting challenged quite that much, really, when you think about it. I thought that even though he did face 8 shots in the first period, I didn't feel like, even in Game 1, I mean, there was a save here and there, but really for the most part, in these 2 first games of the series, Hobby didn't really look like he was challenged all that much. I didn't think he really had to exert that much effort throughout these games. Which why when you if you're going back and watching the games, which I highly recommend, you gotta, some of the goals in this game, I mean, were pretty head scratchy because, at the same time, he looks like he's on, but he's letting in goals like the Rob Lake one to make it 2-0. So the numbers go as so. The Islanders had 25 shots on net, 45.6% in the faceoff circle, 1 for 3 on the power play. And then the Lightning 22 shots, 54.4% in this game on the faceoff circle. Another game in which they just were not good at all on special teams. And I really think that if we're going to look back going into game 3 as to why this series is tied, it's really ultimately because the Lightning are just not able to capitalize whatsoever on special teams. Going 0 for 7 in this one, really not doing, and really didn't do much better in game 1 either. That's really a point of focus that I'm sure John Tortorella at the time was really trying to emphasize with his team, especially when you get 7 power plays in one game. You know, you got to at least score maybe on 1 or 2 of those. If you've been a listener of this podcast for some time, you know that I'm very adamant about special teams chances, especially in today's game where we've seen it before with the Lightning. Not all that often. A couple of years ago, it was a weird kind of thing that was going on. But in today's game, where really kind of the whistle is, I guess maybe the officiating is just a little better than maybe it was back then. The Lightning, need to capitalize. I always say that really, if you get you should really finish a game 33%. So really in reality, if you get 3 chances, you should score at least once. So unfortunately, we haven't really seen that from the Lightning really doing that all that often in this series, and really need to do a better job, as we all know, even though we are aware of what eventually happens to the Lightning in this playoff run. Like I said, let's all pretend like we don't know. We're going game for game, and some of you may not know, and that's the fun of this. But yeah, really, when it comes down to it, the Lightning really need to execute on special teams. Did a pretty good job, I thought, for the most part, defending to a certain degree. I didn't think that they gave the Islanders all that too many chances. The thing that really stuck out to me, though, in this game that the Lightning need to kind of figure out, a lot of their shots are getting blocked. The Islanders had 9 blocked shots, and that's really where I think the Lightning struggled, other than the fact that really just they were trying to play a sprint game with the Islanders in this one. There was a number of times throughout the course of the game where Islanders would rush down, the Lightning would rush back down. I know why the reasoning for that is. Obviously, you want to catch the other team off guard, maybe catch them in the middle of a line change, and have odd man numbers down the other side of the ice, and that's great, but you can't do it every single sequence, as we've seen with this Lightning team before in modern day. So a lot of parallels in this game between the 04 Lightning and the present Lightning. But yeah, the Lightning need to do a better job, and we'll talk about it in the third segment, what they need to do to win game 3. The Lightning really need to do a better job of figuring out a way to get chances down low, make DiPietro really squirm down there, because for the most part, if you go back to this game, especially early on, they were taking shots but nobody in front. There was at times 0 traffic, and DiPietro, he was already one of the better goaltenders in the league at that time. A lot of people don't realize, even though his career was somewhat brief in the NHL, when he was at his first couple of years in the league, I mean, he was really at least top 10, top 5, a little bit of a stretch. It depends who you're talking to. But, at the end of the day, you need to get guys in front of the net, create traffic, create deflections. We saw it in game 1 with the Modine goal. Just need to do a better job. So, yeah, I think, though, all things considered, it wasn't that bad of a performance. It's just something that I'm sure, as the series went on, as it did, Tortorella, being the coach he was very adamant about doing A, B, and C, as what we've just talked about. My big thing, just to wrap up this brief little recap, I really want to see St. Louis get more involved. He's your MVP. I mean, he eventually is named the Art Ross winner, as well as the Hart Trophy winner, and the Ted Lindsay Award winner. So he just you just need to get your top guy, the guy that got you there, involved more often. Whether it's just you saw kind of Tortorella trying to do that at the end of the game. I think St. Louis had something. I think he was out there for the last couple of shifts. I think maybe he was on the ice for the last 2 minutes, which was around that, maybe a minute and a half, whatever, give or take. But I know it's maybe unconventional even back then, but you need to get that guy going early on. So, maybe give him a little longer, especially when he has a lot more gas in the tank. Maybe get him a little bit more of ice time early on, just to get him going as well as the guys around him going. And then one last thing, the LeCavier no-go that was called back after they said it was a distinct kicking motion. It's unfortunate. It's the kind of thing that just kind of takes the wind out of your sails, but you know what? I can't knock the guy for trying. It was very obvious to see right as like they went back to the replay, and I along with the announcers, I don't understand why they took so long to do it. To decide that it was a no goal, that because of kicking and all that stuff, but whatever. Lightning lose this one 3-0. Series is tied 1-1, and we go back to New York as the Lightning try to get back to winning ways. As it's unfortunate. You're the second best team in the East that year, and you just need to do a better job. But I think that there's still left to be obviously untapped in this one. And let me correct myself. They were the best team in the East. They were just the second best team in terms of points, obviously, in the league. The Red Wings won the President's Trophy that year. But let me know in the comments below. If you did watch this game, how did it make you feel? What memories did it bring back for you? If this is your first time watching it, let me know in the comments below. Just some observations. The thing I'm really enjoying is just seeing guys like LeCavier and St. Louis and Brad Richards, guys playing when they were young. We all, some of you may not even know Marty St. Louis or remember Marty St. Louis when he was on the Lightning. For me, he was my favorite. He was one of my first favorite players, him and Yager. And seeing him kind of at his prime is really something special for me to see. And I can't wait to see what else he does, because I know he goes absolutely off in this playoffs. So let me know in the comments below. And coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk about some of the parallels between what we've seen from the Lightning through the first two games of the 2004 Eastern Conference quarterfinals against the Islanders, as compared to what we have seen from this Lightning team over the last couple of years or so. But first, we're going to talk about our first sponsor and only sponsor on today's show, and that is our friends over at Indeed. Now, listen up, people. The job hiring market, it's very funky today, especially if you're an employer. Some people don't want to work. Some people don't know where to start when they're applying. Some job sites are just so weird. But listen, we're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't a search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Now, if you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So listeners right now of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So as always, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe to our channel there. Drop a comment below this video. Let me know, if you're watching this game for the first time, what are some of the observations that stuck out to you? If this is not the first time you watched this game, let me know maybe some memories that you had from back then, maybe throughout this playoff series. For maybe some of our younger listeners, including myself, who wasn't able to watch it then, what it was really like in the moment. But so anyway, moving on, we're looking at the comparisons, the parallels, whatever you want to say, for the 04 Lightning thus far in this series as what we've seen to modern day Lightning. And real quick, just a programming note or a content note, really. I did say on the last podcast, that the last episode, that we'd be posting the best play from every game. I misspoke. I meant to say the best play from every win. Just so, why, unless it's a completely crazy play that was made and unfortunately the Lightning lose that game, we won't be posting it. But yeah, so hopefully we'll be posting, well, not hopefully, because we know. We'll be posting at least 15 more very good plays, maybe more, depending on, how the rest of the playoffs go in terms of, especially in the games the Lightning drop. But looking at the comparisons for today's Lightning compared to that 04 team, just through the first couple of games, the thing that really stuck out to me was obviously the slow start. I think a lot of us, when you looked at this Lightning team in game 2 as opposed to game 1, the first 10 minutes just kind of night and day to a certain degree, and heavily relying on the goaltender, or something that we have seen from this Lightning team countless times when things aren't going and the top guys are just kind of not doing anything or not making an effect on the game. We saw that in game 2. Really, other than LeCavier having that goal taken back, you didn't see any of the big guys really do much of anything, really make a play at all. If they did, really, they wouldn't have gotten shut out. Modine didn't really do much of anything. He had some chances here and there. LeCavier, Richards, St. Louis, didn't do much of anything. I feel like when I was watching that game, especially for St. Louis, you didn't really hear his name until the third period for the most part, except maybe when really he got the puck. And we've seen that oftentimes in today's Lightning with Nikita Kucherov. I mean, if you're going to make the comparisons to who is who on each team, St. Louis would definitely be Kucherov. LeCavier would probably be, I would say, Point, and then Richards would probably be Stamkos. And I'm just going off of, what those guys meant to their respective teams at, the last couple of years for the Lightning, as well as 04 for the Lightning. I don't want you or anybody to think that I am comparing Braden Point's game to Vincent LeCavier. No, I'm not doing that. And definitely not St. Louis to Kucherov. Totally different players. But like I said, the roles that they have on that team, and Andrew Truck would probably be more of a Hedman type player, just because of the leadership, big body guy who plays physical. That's really it. And Hobby Bullen, of course, Vasilevsky. But yeah, I feel like with this Lightning team, it was like, now I kind of understand the ghost of down performances are somewhat haunting modern day Lightning. I mean, last night, if I was just listening to the game and you just substituted modern day Lightning players onto the 04 team, I probably would have guessed that game happened this year for the most part. Because that is a kind of game and a performance that we would see the Lightning lose to a team like the Islanders, not necessarily the Islanders. I mean, I can't really compare that Islanders team, maybe like the Red Wings or the Senators, a game where you look on paper and you say the Lightning should win this game, and then they get shut out subsequently. So there's, I guess, that comparison. But really, I guess that's just the game of hockey, though. You show out, you win a game that maybe some people might think that you don't really deserve or have any business winning, and then you have a performance the next game in which you just get really outplayed and kind of don't do much of anything. And we've seen that countless times with this current day Lightning team, especially this past season. The thing that stuck out to me as well in game 2 of the 2004 was the fact that the Lightning, just their puck possession was just at times atrocious. And really the thing that I saw that kind of just blew my mind is oftentimes when they were going down, whether it be on a rush or just zone entries, there was sometimes no game plan, or at least looked like there wasn't. You would see the puck handler go into the zone and kind of just look around and kind of just have that mentality, almost like, all right, who's open? Let me just get rid of this, instead of kind of just assessing the situation, maybe holding on to the puck a couple of more seconds. So everybody gets set up. And listen, if you've watched the Lightning in the last 365 days, as well as I do, that's kind of been the story this year. At times, especially when their stars aren't performing up to the level that the Lightning need them to perform at, oftentimes this team kind of just doesn't it. I almost can't describe it, because it's really frustrating, because I've said it numerous times this year. All the talent in the world just don't understand if it's a disconnect between the coaching staff and the players, or if it's just the players just for whatever reason not being able to translate whatever game plan they have onto the ice. And I felt like that's what we saw in this game 2 rewatch of the 2004 Eastern Conference quarterfinals. For the Lightning. And so, really it goes to show you that no matter what era, what generation, hockey players were always going to come across the same issues. And that's really not something new for the Tampa Bay Lightning franchise. So wrapping things up real quick, we're talking about, obviously we're going about this as if we have no idea how the next game is going to go, what happens or what. We're looking at game 3 of this rewatch, what the Lightning really need to do in order to win that game in New York. And really the facts of the matter are, you need to go out there and play a better game. Something that we have talked about countless times about this past Lightning's team, this 2023-24 Lightning roster. They need to basically go out there and really, if I was John Tortorella, my message going into game 3 in New York would basically be this. You see everything you did in game 2? Well, take that, absorb it, and don't do the opposite of that. And that's really what the Lightning need to do. They just need to play better all around. I saw a team that was very laid back, a team that was not really aggressive early on, a team that was kind of just waiting for something to happen. I don't know if it was just maybe a lucky bounce past DiPietro, or maybe just a big save by Habibulin, where now you got numbers going back down the other side. That all coupled with the fact that the team just, quite frankly, needs to be better on the special teams. I wish I could be a fly on the wall throughout game 2, just because I just want to see Tortorella during the intermissions completely lose his mind. Because if anybody has heard stories, you could go back to the podcast episode I had way back in 2020 where we had GM of the Lightning at the time in 2004, Jay Feaster. He was on here. He was telling us about some of the stories and, just the atmosphere around this Lightning team back in 2004. And really, John Tortorella, we like to think nowadays that, players really are what the spoon that stirs the pot. But back then, for some teams at least, that wasn't the case. John Tortorella, I mean, was really a huge part of the reason why this Lightning team not only made it as far and not was only as successful as they were was because of him. And, I'm sure I like I said, I wish I could be there. I wish I could have been there to hear that, and just experience the veracity of his words and his mood in the locker room, between intermissions as well as after games and playoffs. I mean, practices and all that stuff, because I'm sure he's telling them the whole time, listen, I can't go out there and play for you. If you want to win this game, go out there and win it. If you want to play well, go ahead. Nobody could do it for you. And I think that's really what, his attitude is. And plus or minus a couple of expletives in there, which obviously we're just going to use our imagination, for that part. But yeah, they really need to go out there and make something happen and really, allow Hobby Bullen to make mistakes so he could rely on you instead of you relying on him. Obviously, he needs to have a solid game. But through the first couple of games, except for, the first Rob Blake goal, I thought Hobby was really was pretty solid out there. He's not really being over aggressive on shots. I think he's really allowing himself pretty easily to get back into really position to allow himself to make saves on secondary chances out there. So, obviously he's not the issue. Really where it lies, the issue is really the Lightning offense, and it really needs to get going in game 3 because, you don't want to be going back to Tampa Bay down or tied. That, especially when you're the top seed in the East and you're really kind of expected to breeze to this Islanders team. So let me know in the comments below, especially like if you were watching this when it was going on. What were your thoughts at this point going to New York tied? Were you surprised? Were you not surprised? Were you upset about it? Were you just calm about it and said, we got this? Let me know. And like I said, we'll be continuing to do this entire segment every single game played in this playoff run, until the end of the summer, or if we finish before then. So, make sure to follow the podcast on our social media pages, LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram. We'll be posting the best plays from each game that the Lightning win. We'll be posting the video, so you'll be able to see the highlight. So you'll be able to follow us on there. And then you can follow some more of my work at boltsbythebay.com. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you next one.